And I can't figure out still, it's my universal question, what keeps people from defining being healthy as one of the most important jobs that you could do? That should be one of our jobs, is that we're healthy. Do we need to be, on the cover of a magazine fit? No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about healthy, vital, having a functioning body that we take care of. Truly healthy, functional healthy, not looking. I'm talking about real health, metabolic health, mental health, spiritual health, but also within that, I want to show up in a way where I'd be willing to offend some people. Hi, everyone. I'm Gabby Reece. I'm a retired professional volleyball player and co-founder of XPT Fitness and Laird Superfoods. And on this podcast, we interview experts, whether it's in the latest in health and fitness or kind of the bigger internal questions at the end, so you can maximize performance in all areas of your busy life. And today we're breaking down New Year's resolutions. It's the perfect time. Goals are something that are important to me, but it's also really personal. And I thought this was a perfect time. The world is, as always, rapidly changing. And with technology, it seems even crazier. And it's the vital time that, we have our own internal measurements for growth and success. I think it's so important. I'm going to break down the way I do it, my strategies for creating productive goals and ways to track those goals throughout the year. And there is a lot to talk about, but most importantly, at the end of the day, it's always, for me, the conversation is about how do you do it? It's not about how I do it or me telling you what to do. I can share my strategies and we can encourage each other, but still we've got to not only create the system that's going to work for us, but one that just really reflects who we are. So happy holidays and welcome to the Gabby Reece Show. Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. My guest today is just me. It is right before the new year, and thought we'd do sort of a look back, look forward, even though, right, one of the goals is always to be more present. So it's kind of funny. I'll be answering some questions that people had for me. And the basic theme of this podcast is just creating healthy habits and goals for the new year. So let's start there. I'm not a big New Year's resolution kind of person. I'm always of the belief, I'm sort of a Monday girl. Like if I've been blowing it in whichever ways, in my habits, in my lifestyle, whether it's movement, food, I've been blowing it in relationships, in my role as a parent. Like, when you're just kind of off your game and not your best. I always use Mondays as a reboot. And it's not to say that we can't wake up each day and that we're new, but there was something about that for me when I go to bed on a Sunday night with this deep intention to just do it different the next day when I woke up. But a lot of people use New Year's to sort of say, I'm going to get after it. All right, what does that look like? How do I set my own resolutions and do I believe in them? We call it a lot of things. I think it's, as I get older, and I'm going to have a birthday in about a week, it's more about purpose and contribution. And if I can back my life into understanding what is that, then I can put all the scaffolding around it. Like, okay, what time am I going to get to bed? And how am I going to be eating? And am I drinking alcohol? How am I treating people? Because that not only seems to be something that is meaningful and has gravity enough that I can stick to it, but I feel like it drives everything else. It'll drive what am I doing in my work. It'll drive, it just drives everything. And so for me personally, it's not about resolutions. It's about understanding my values and my purpose. And so what does that look like for me right now in my life? Well, certainly taking care of my health is part of my purpose because it's for the bigger story, right? It's how do I want to show up as a partner to Laird or as a mom to Bella, Viola, and Brody, the really intimate relationships in my life, for my friends. And And then it goes out from there, right? It's sort of like, what work do I want to be doing? What interviews? What does that mean? Layered superfood. It's like there I'm selling something. So how does it translate there? Well, what ingredients are in the bag? Things like that. So I think at this point, it ends up being, when you're younger, it's like, hey, I'm trying to build something, and I put it in air quotes, be somebody. And you realize that there is a place for that, right? It's really important. And when we're younger, I think it should be a lot about who we are. And then as we do get older, part of the sense of satisfaction and meaning and purpose is contributing, is being able to help my neighbor, is being able to react the way that I want to react in that way. We practice, like I have a lot of friends, like they'll go to therapy or they do meditations and all these things. I think the goal for all of that, besides it can be a helpful tool, is so that when the moments come, when the stress comes, when life throws you a zinger and someone's sick or something happens, that you get the opportunity, that you're fortified enough in a way that you can show up in the way that you really hoped that you would. And that's always just easier said than done. And so that's where I'm at right now. And yes, I have dreams still, and I want to build and kick ass and make money, and I'm curious and all of these things, but it's still backed into something about who I'm trying to be as a human being and how I'm trying to contribute. And it's not about legacy. I think that's kind of a myth, at least for me. It's right now. How am I showing up right now? And so let's talk about that. So how would you set a goal? Well, what means something to you? Why would you do it? Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to be healthy? To look good, to look cute, to get laid, like whatever the reasons are. I'm not telling you if any of the reasons are good or bad. I'm just saying for you to get intimate with your real reasons. And once you understand that, it's understanding why those are your reasons. And I really feel like when we drive and dig down into those things, even if it's like, hey, I love riding my bike, or I do this trip once a year, and it's with a bunch of my friends, and we go on this radical hike and do all these things. That's a good reason to want to feel good and be healthy. So then it's about backing it into your food, your movement, your sleep, your hydration, your community, and taking away the things that are stopping you. I think one thing I've learned doing this podcast is I can't add more for you to do. Nobody has time for more. Let me give you 17 new workouts to do. That's not going to work. Let me tell you all the foods and all the supplements and all the things you need to be adding and timing. This one on an empty stomach, this one before bed, this one when you wake up. It doesn't work. So what are the things that are stopping you? Right at the top of the list, let's talk about our community. Let's start there. So now you've connected with your why. So now let's get into the how. It's got to start with community. So if your why is meaningful enough to you, because that's all that matters, then let's get to community. Do you have a few people, one person, but I think a couple is better, that you've got to check in with, that checks on you, that when you're low in energy, they're fired up. When they're down, you're like, we've got this. What is your community? There are a very small percentage of people, and I usually find that they're runners or people that either do really extreme things that way. Maybe they go in nature, they can do it alone. Build your community. I've said this a lot of times. You do not have to be best friends with the people you train with. They just have to be the people that show up like a hammer and that you're willing to show up for. That's all. It's that simple. And then the second part is those other practices. Let's go to food next. Are you eating whole food? Are you using food as a tool for anything other than to fuel your body? Just take a look at that. Are you snacking because you're bored, you're sad, you're lonely, you're depressed, you're anxious? Fine. Just start to notice and start slow. Write it down. If you're really starting from this beginning, I think it's really important to write it down and also plan your meals. So you sort of don't have a surprise. And at least do this for 90 days. It gets much easier. I promise you, if you're starting at the beginning, it seems impossible, especially food. It's very, very tricky, is you will get better at it. And so don't make it impossible. Like, I can't eat anything. No, just take away the things that are not supporting you in this new resolution that you're making for 2025 and figure out what that is. So is it alcohol? Are you smoking? I'm not going to say quit smoking. I'm going to say, can you smoke less? If you're doing really well in your habits, maybe eat dinner a little earlier. If you know that you need to eat more vegetables and fruit, can you do that instead of, some kind of filler? Nobody doesn't love a pasta or bread, but just being mindful and eliminating slowly, bit by bit. So for you, maybe say every 1 week or every 2 weeks, I'm going to take one more thing out that's not supporting me. Okay. It's not about everything all at once. So even if you make the resolution for January 1, we're going to be habit building and stacking and trying to get rid of some of our other habits like March, April. Like, we're going to stay in this. This show has been brought to you by Laird Superfood. I can easily talk about this brand because it was created by accident in my kitchen almost 10 years ago. I'm highly personally involved with this brand. And the first thing I want to share with you is our guardrails. We are very committed to of course, no artificial, but also no natural flavors. This is something really important. So we're guided by ingredients. But then, of course, we want to make this one of the most enjoyable experiences that you have. So we have so many beautiful products. We started with our coffees and creamers. We have Peruvian, high altitude, low acidic organic coffee, very smooth and delicious, and our creamers. Our creamers have incredible ingredients. We also put adaptogens in there. We use, again, no artificial flavors, great, incredible array of flavors. So we have our original, we have on low sugar, we have our mocha, my personal favorite, turmeric, pumpkin spice. We have our instant category. So these are products that have our coffees and creamers already going. You just add hot water. So if you're on the go, in the office, on the airplane, we have you covered. We even have a pumpkin spice latte. It's like really delicious. If you're looking for high quality greens with no fillers, we have reds. We have bars with no weird ingredients, and our hydrate products. I think this is one of our unsung heroes besides our instant category. So it's freeze-dried coconut right at the source, wonderful minerals. We have a mango flavor, lemon. So if you're looking for something like this, you can head to lairdsuperfood.com, LAIRDSUPERFOOD.com. And if you see something you like, use the code GABBY, GABBY 20 for 20% off your first order at lairdsuperfood.com. Okay, movement. Take away your worst habit. So if your worst habit maybe is sitting, start taking a walk. I'm not talking about getting to the gym and killing yourself right out of the gate so you're so sore that you can't walk or you hurt yourself or hurt your back. No. What are the things you're doing? Like, if you are working out, maybe you're not working out enough. So add an extra day. Start slow. Write it down in the beginning. And also notice the wins. I try to set it up. So for example, can you, if your schedule permits, given you don't have a brand new baby or if you've got a bunch of little kids at home still, can you try to work out right at the beginning of the day? Because I really do believe that those wins, those mini wins, those micro wins, whatever label people have for everything now, really helps propel you to the next. So if you can get it done early, try your best. And if you say, hey, my schedule doesn't permit, I have to do it at the end of the day, great. It's always better than not. So I'm not talking about it has to be done a specific way, but maybe if you can do it and before stress builds and the list builds and all the emails that you have to answer, if you can do it early as possible, try to do that. Okay, sleep. Really simple. We talk about it all the time. Sleep in a dark room, get to bed around the same time every night, try to get up at the same time. And this really will change your whole life. Because a lot of times you'll see things like I talk about supplements and things that I share with you in my advertising on this podcast. And it'll be like, oh, your recovery, your joints, your this and that. Well, it's really a lot of the times because you're sleeping. So remember, the only time we recover is during sleep. It's not the most important thing, it just shares that slot. Okay. So I just want to remind you that if you can connect with your why, build a strategy in a community, this other stuff, it's not that it's easy. It's just so much more doable. And don't make it crazy. Why do we have to change everything about ourselves all at once? But be honest with yourself. That's the thing. I think people make a lot of excuses. And I can't figure out still, it's my universal question. What keeps people from defining being healthy as one of the most important jobs that you could do? That should be one of our jobs, is that we're healthy. Do we need to be, on the cover of a magazine fit? No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about healthy, vital, having a functioning body that we take care of. Why we don't make that one of our jobs or start today, that would be the thing that I would just put out there as a question. So, I get asked, what are healthy goals to set? Should people set massive health goals or small incremental? I think it's better to have the big ones overarching and then make the small ones to get there and forget about it after that. And as far as tips and tricks, I wouldn't bother. That's another thing for me, a new thing for me in 2025. So I think the way that I grew up, I have felt it was really important to be a decent person. Not a perfect person, not a nice person, but a decent person, an honest person, a kind, empathetic person, a decent person. But I also have kind of a harsh personality. And so I have spent a lot of years, especially on this professional side, right? My middle daughter, she's 21. She's like, you've got to stop talking when you do social media and other things, like with your TV personality. And I thought that was funny, because in my early 20s and since then, I've done a lot of that kind of delivery instead of my more authentic self, which is just pretty straightforward and being secure that some people will get it, some people won't. And knowing that if I'm clear with how my heart is, that's really good enough. And so I'm so good about appearing to not trying to please people or, wanting to be nice or all these things. But the truth is that maybe I have spent some time kind of trying to soften those edges where really I believe as we get older, it's about sharpening all the edges. It's about sharpening who we are and our authenticity and the way we communicate, our ability to love, that all of it gets bigger. So if you ask me, hey, what am I planning on doing for 2025? Yeah, certainly around my health, I'm going to continue to try to be as vibrant and healthy, truly healthy, functional healthy, not looking, not, oh, yeah, I'm this weight and this body weight. I'm talking about real health, metabolic health, mental health, spiritual health, really healthy. But also within that, I want to show up in a way where I'd be willing to offend some people. I think a lot of that comes from I don't want to get in the fray. It's like, I don't want to offend anyone because I don't really want to deal with it. Instead of saying, I'm going to speak my truth in my entirety. And that means in my real voice and just kind of let the chips fall where they may. And that's been something for whatever reason that maybe has been harder for me than I realized. It's interesting because living with Laird, I'm very protective of him and I'm always trying to kind of soften him and buffer him. And he's not afraid. He just says it how it is because he knows that he is kind and loving. And he's the one who often tells me being this direct with my friends or my family, this is being loving, telling them the truth or what I see, even if I'm wrong. That is really being loving. So that's something I'm going to be working on 2025. And I certainly wouldn't tell you what to focus on in the next year. But let's talk about some of the superficial things about what to focus on. So again, we've talked about it. Put energy into knowing your reasons for wanting to be healthy. And what happens to a lot of people is they want to do it for someone else, a kid, or they have a health scare, and then all of a sudden they get on it. What about for yourself? what are the reasons for yourself that you want to be healthy? I think once we get into that groove, it does make sticking to it so much easier. And then once we feel good, we don't want to trade that. We just don't. So I would focus on that. And someone asked me, what were my hopes for how the world of fitness and health would change in 25? I know a lot of people get frustrated about the possibility of RFK coming in, but if it hasn't worked to date, our health system just hasn't worked. And I don't know why this has become politicized, because it affects all of us and all of our children. My hope is that we just get to do it better, and that companies are held more accountable, and that people stop thinking it's a quick fix or going to social media or people like me for the answers. I think that there are not 5 ways, or I'm going to show you these 3 exercises and it's going to fix your health. My hope is that we have a broader, more nuanced conversation and redefine what health is. Health has become this kind of whole capsule that we do away from who we are, instead of it's integrated into our day-to-day life. It's part of what we do. It's part of going to work, picking up kids at school, seeing friends, and not, quote, being healthy. That this is just a practice that's a part of our life, and it's deeper and much more complex than this separate siloed thing we do in a gym for 40 minutes. But if it has to start that way, great, so be it. Because I go back to that belief that once you feel good or you feel the difference, I won't need to say anything to you. So I think that's some of my approach to 2025. And I'll just go through and answer some other questions. Okay, one was, what is an ideal day and what would I do? I've said this a lot. I'm like a really simple person. For me to get up and have a coffee with Laird and spend quality time with my family, train really hard and feel good. Because a lot of times that's the other thing. I've beaten on my body pretty nicely. And a lot of days I don't feel great, but that's just what you do, right? Knees hurt, a hip hurts, you're tired, you're stiff, whatever it is. So I also want to share that with you. It's not that I feel good in the way that I don't have aches and pains. I feel good when I've earned it. I've sweat. Probably my hormones are more regulated. My microbiome's working. I'm sleeping. I'm eliminating. But that does not mean I am not living with aches and pains pretty much all the time. And that is a part of it. So my ideal day would be training. I really enjoy my work. I love, whether it's interviewing someone, working on Laird Superfood, talking about ingredients, doing an XPT event, kind of hands-on people, training them, learning from the people that I work with at XPT. All of that is pretty incredible. And for me, there is nothing better than an end of day gathering with my friends and family around a good meal. I just don't. I can't think of a moment, of an event, of a piece of jewelry, of anything better than that time. Because there's laughter, there's debate, there might even be some argument, and that's living. So that would be my perfect day, and in warm weather. I'm going to admit it right now, and I know if you're listening to this, it's probably cooler where you are. I grew up in the Caribbean. I like warm weather, so getting out in nature at some point during that day would be pretty incredible, and feeling small. Arthur C. Brooks says it's pretty simple. If you really want to feel that sense of happiness, whatever that is for you, be small. And just having those things in my life that keep me small so I can really be my best and contribute has really worked for me. What new habits did I develop in 24? And I didn't realize it. Well, of course you realize it. I mean, listen, I'm not asleep. A couple things. I really have become more conscious, obviously not right in this moment, but blocking the blue light. I've been listening to a lot of Dr. Jack Kruse. He is, he says, if, you listen to his lectures and such, I'm only here for the savages. I think this is somebody who's had a lot of information for 30 years and he's just like, F it. I'm just going to say it all. Now, if you're new to the space of wellness, I would baby step it before I get to him. I would, unless you have thick skin and you don't take the delivery personal. But the understanding of what blue light truly, created pretty much in Vegas, makes us impulsive. It does a bunch of stuff, and it's on purpose. So I always hope that people will take like a rebellious attitude about the phone and about blue light and get sort of like, well, they're not going to do this to me. And even if we do that like 5% of the time, it's better for us. So one of the things I did in 24 is blocking blue light a lot more. I've been stretching more. That's definitely been my constant. That'll be my constant going into 25 because I suck at it and I pay the price for that. So another thing I have been doing is adding methylene blue to either right before I do cardiovascular exercise or go out in sunlight or even the red light. So I have been taking a brand called Troscriptions. I do not work with the company. That's just a brand I do. If you don't want to have a blue tongue, it's not for you. And I've just been experimenting what that does for my health. And this does go back to, I have a friend who got diagnosed with cancer and he went on a very strong protocol. And one of the practices was that, and there was some success there. I'm not getting into all of that. I'm just sharing with you some things I have added in 24. And then finally, so blocking the blue light, a lot of blue tone, is the sunlight. So here's where the rabbit hole goes a little bit. So I mentioned Dr. Jack Kruse, and I used to say, hey, sleep and food was the number one thing on the list. And what I'm really starting to understand is all of the myriad of bodily functions that are supported by and kind of ignited by being in the sun and in the sunlight. And so if you could add one thing in 25, if you're able, if you're in an area that you can do it, if you, again, just somehow in your schedule, I know it's hard when you have especially little kids or you live in a city, can you witness first light? There's so much data about your eyes looking at first light, setting your sleep, your melatonin, just all of it. So I will say that is something that we have added in our house. Laird has been very diligent. He's better at it than I am. I think it's offensive to wake up when it's dark. I like to be snugly in my bed, but this is something just being out in sunlight. Because by the way, I can get lost at my desk like everyone else. Hours and hours go by. I've been sitting. I've been under the LED lights. So that is something that it's really basic. It's free. And I think it could be the most powerful thing we could do for our health. It's all just a suggestion. Someone asked me, why do I care so much about being healthy? I just tie it to everything great that's in my life and being able to enjoy that. If you haven't felt good or you've been injured, it's very hard to enjoy all the blessings that are right in front of you. And so I tie my ability to really take it in, the hugs, the good food, just those real moments with feeling good, because I know the other, and mine are usually injuries, just not being able to get there, just having that kind of veil of discomfort or pain or irritation or whatever the things are that keep me from being able to take what is good in my life. Is it stressful? Yep. Are there things I worry about? All the time. But somehow when I feel overall healthy, I still can recognize the funny things, the love, the powerful things that are happening every day and every hour. And that's why ultimately at the end, like it started by wanting to jump high and, hit balls hard. And it really evolved into so many other things that I didn't know were also happening when I was looking at it just as an athlete. So for me, that's it. Somebody asked me if my children have done anything this past year that have warmed my heart. Oh my goodness. I really am so humbled by having daughters and by having children. And I think there's so many things that they do. I think watching them become who they are, even when it's the things I don't like and scare me, there's something about watching them grow and kind of try things on that are interesting. Sometimes they kick my ass, but it's been interesting to see. And I'll be honest, they're like, for example, I'm going through something right now with one of my daughters that it's hard for me. It's like I want to be a really good mom, like all moms feel. And sometimes I have parental insecurity because I didn't, it's like very few of us have great examples. And so sometimes, believe it or not, I'm more lenient than I would like to be. And that isn't always great. And so then trying to pull back or throw down boundaries, or it's like, oh, does she feel loved? All these things. And so I can say that it's a constant source of learning and it's wonderful. I have one daughter in particular. She comes home now and again and, she cooks in the kitchen and she makes food way better tasting and healthier than me. And she's glorious. And when I say that, I mean like in all the ways that people are glorious. It's like loving and brilliant and beautiful. And so watching her has really been extraordinary. But I feel like even when it's hard, there's something in there, something in that learning, something in that willingness to say, okay, I don't know. And I do feel nervous and, I'm going to sit in it. I'm going to deal with it. I think there's something I've learned over the years that's very, very powerful. It's like really human about that. It's not fun all the time. And I lose sleep. I swear to God, I have like, I look, sometimes I have like little, white hairs that show up and I give them names and they're of my daughters. So the arc is long on that story. So being married to Laird, we celebrated 27 years of marriage and we've been together for 29. Someone asked me, have I watched Laird evolve over the years? Well, that's a whole podcast in itself. But in short, listen, Laird drank alcohol till 17 years ago. So one of the things I admire the most about Laird was his very intense relationship with alcohol and how he shifted that. And then, of course, as you get older and you are tempered by your family and by failures professionally and by, injuries, I have really admired Laird's willingness to show up. So he's certainly intense, but in certain ways, and I mentioned this on another podcast, Male Wisdom, I've watched Laird accrue a lot of male wisdom and letting young men go ahead and, listening to all the females in his life. I'm like, I think that growing with a partner, if it was your, the way it's supposed to be for you, I don't think obviously every couple, there's a million ways to do it, right? Like I was just working with somebody who his mom was on her third husband and he said, listen, every one of her husbands that she picked are amazing people. So I'm not saying there's one way to do it. I'm only saying in my way, but being able to kind of grow up and with somebody is not only really fun, but there's times Laird and I will laugh together about how absolutely absurd things are, where maybe 20 years ago, that would have been something I cried about, or Laird would have gotten angry. And now we're just like, yep. And that, it's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing. And somebody who helped me a lot with that is, obviously I have good friends, and I mention Byron Katie a lot, but that curiosity, that sense of like what's going to happen right now and not do a ton of past futuring, as she says, has really, really been helpful. It really has. So I'll continue to try to keep my sense of humor in 2025. So What rituals, if any, do I wish I would have done while I was a collegiate athlete and then a pro? Well, right off the bat, stretching, but having a real stretching practice. So for your sport, we call it unwinding the wind. So for example, for me as a jumping athlete, my quads became like beef jerky. I really wish I had gotten a thoughtful practice. And this is really a small thing, but we drank sugary drinks. I won't say names, but they're usually like very bright colors because, you're hydrating. And so I really wish I never had the practice of drinking any of that while period, but certainly while I'm in the middle of a competition, not drinking a bunch of sugar, and trying to be an athlete. So I think, just those simple things and also taking it in because it's for a finite period of time. But that's not how life works. I don't think life works where we sort of take it in when it's happening. I think it's like we're in the classroom and that's what we're doing. And then we look back and go, oh, wow, that was pretty amazing. So I think that's just part of being a human. We do talk about that in parenting where if you go, hey, I did this as a parent, then I had this other consequence because of that. And then you go, but oftentimes I look back and I go, well, I wish maybe I had done that differently, but then I would have had another set of consequences. So I think it's really coming to terms with knowing like we're probably doing the best that we can in that moment. And we'll get the lessons and we can course correct or adjust and we'll go on from there. But to sit and beat ourselves up like, oh, I should have done this, that, and this. I don't know if that's so productive. I don't really think it is. Which experts, I get asked this a lot, do I gravitate to for credible information? Okay, so I mentioned Jack Kruse, but that's more hardcore and you have to be in a different mindset to listen to that information. It's a little more scary, it's more harsh, but if you've been in performance a long time and, talked about mitochondria for more than 10 years, you're probably ready for it. My favorite podcast in the world is Tim Dillon. And I'm not getting health information from Tim Dillon. I'm getting someone who's actually using humor to say pretty truthful things. And I think that's why I love comedy. I love education and comedy. So on the educational side, if I want help with my, let's say, mobilization, Kelly Starrett, the Ready State. I love Jill Miller. I love this idea of people teaching you how to care for yourself. I think this idea of us finding ways to get out of physical trouble from being athletes, from sitting, from all these things is really, really helpful. So I go to them for that kind of information. I do really enjoy Joe Dispenza just talking about the power of not only meditation, but being reminded how our beliefs and our mind and our heart can dictate so much. And he gives really tangible takeaways into and sort of best practices in doing that. Because I think we make everything so physical and material, and we've overlooked the power of the computer, our mind, that can be the best chemist, the best doctor, the best, natural pharmacy that we have access to, and we just don't know how. And so I really appreciate his work a lot. And, I've had guests on my show that I really appreciate. I loved the Good Energy book, Casey Means. But at the end of the day, I think once you get the basics down about knowing what you're trying to take care of with your microbiome and your sleep and, trying to avoid chronic inflammation and all these things, it's really about best practices. We can hear it over and over. I mean, we've got 1 million podcasts right now, but it's about putting in play that practice. And even if it's just 5 minutes a day. So another thing I'm going to incorporate is a little bit more meditation, but I'm not getting crazy. It's going to be in the morning when I can, 5 to 10 minutes a day. I'll be honest with you. I hate sitting in Indian style. I have really stiff knees and a tiny little tear in my labrum. So I'm going to sit with my legs out in front of me. It's that simple. But while I'm there, I'm also going to connect with the parts of me that don't feel good and tell them that I love them, and also believe that they can be different and they can be better. And that is not easy. Believe me. I have named the injuries of my knees. I have one artificial knee. I've moved them in. They've become part of my identity, and I'm still working on that. I'm still working on trying to move, not settle like, oh, that's just how it is and that's how I'm always going to be. It's like, nope, I can still work at it. So as an athlete, as a person, all those things is trying not to be constantly defined by the way I have been, but working on, however, small or big, being better. Because we can. There's people who be like, I have a big temper. It's like, okay, you might today, but you could work on that. And so I think when it comes to things like that, that's what I'm going to keep doing. I'm going to keep trying to find my blind spots, keep asking people who are willing to tell me in a safe and loving way, people that I respect, keep listening to my body and saying, okay, this is who I am today, but could I be better? And just to continue that. And again, I just want to say that I say all of this so easily. I'm around this content all the time. It is a very challenging thing to execute. It is. But what's the alternative? And that's what I think about health. What's the alternative? And so once I know something is true, I'm not going to keep banging my head against the wall. At the end of the day, when someone is sick, they're not wishing they had more money. They just wish they felt good or they had more time. So I'm just trying to do my best to do that now. And that's my resolution pretty much every year. It doesn't change. It's like, hey, what are the ways I could be better? So I don't know. I've thought a lot about aging because now I'm at an age that you're just aware, you're aware of time. You can even see it on your face and in your body, and your kids are big, and so I've thought a lot about not getting a limiting mindset about age. So I have a new thing, which has been, I'm here and I'm alive. So when I think about age, I'm not here to fight it. I think there's so many wonderful things about being here a minute, is I'm alive right now, because a lot of people aren't. So when you think about that, like that limiting restriction that we put on ourselves because of time and age, be thankful that you're alive. And what are the things you could do right now going into 2025 that will make you more alive? And so maybe that's the resolution. Let's be more alive in 2025. Let's be more peaceful. Let's be less hysterical. Let's be less reactive. And I want to have some fun. I hide behind my work and I avoid fun because it's sort of like, it's loose. I don't control it. But I live with somebody who reminds me that, like, what are we doing here? We're here to take care of ourselves, to love each other, help each other out, and work a little. So I really appreciate you guys spending time with me this year and tuning to whatever shows you have and spending time with me on this podcast. And I have some really fun things planned for 2025, working with some other women that I admire and respect to talk about wellness. So hopefully you'll be able to see some of that. And it's not about, I say with women, because I just think it's a different point of view, right? Like when you are a female and if you've decided to have children or you work, I think it's really easy to talk about health and wellness in all these measured ways, like, oh, your, heart rate variability and, minutes of this and explosive training and HIIT training and, zone 2 and all this stuff. But I do think, as a female, it's just a little different. And I think, I'm excited to get with these other women in the space. They're all a lot smarter than I am, like doctors and stuff. But just to kind of break it down, because the great thing is they have the information. They know the studies for real, right? These are not influencers. These are serious women. But when you ask them, like we've had meetings on the phone and like one of them is in the bathroom of a hotel. Why? Of course, because her kid is in the next room with her family and that's just what you do. One is there and in the background you see a little kid running around in a Spider-Man costume. It's like, hey, that's everybody. So I'm excited to share with them and get real takeaways, but also go, hey, are you getting it done in your life? And they'll say barely. And that's what I want to say in ending this. I know a lot of this stuff and each day I feel like I'm barely getting it done. But somehow when you string it all together, kind of all the barelys, you arrive somewhere. So thanks for hanging out with me. Happy New Year. And remember, if it doesn't go perfect as planned, keep at it. It's worth it. It's worth it. And don't make excuses because the only person that hurts is the individual. It's like I was telling my friend today, Elijah, at the end of the day, I want to support everybody and sell this and this, but part of me wants to say, and also like, I don't care if you don't do it because like I'm doing it. So I really want to encourage you. You can do it. If it's bumpy, if it's not fun, whatever it is, just keep at it. Do your best and don't make any excuses. And I send you and your family wishes of health and love. And I'm excited for 2025. I think there's parts of this pendulum that are swinging the other way, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And if you have any comments or questions or practices, or you want to share how it's going, I always look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year. So thanks again for joining me and listening to the Gabby Reece Show. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if anything showed up today that you find would be helpful to someone you know, pass it along and make sure to share with us what really resonated and stood out for you in this conversation. Thanks again for joining us. Keep going, and I'll see you next time.